Well, Police Minister Bheki Cele says his men and women in blue will continue to wage war on the proliferation of illegal firearms. He revealed yesterday that firearms are 3 times more likely to be the weapon of choice in all reported murders.
Minister Cele says their focus is on removing guns that are in the wrong hands. So how easy or difficult will this process be? Well, we're joined by criminal forensic investigator Rafadi. A very good morning to you, Calvin, and thank you so much for joining us. So I suppose that is the question. He is talking a big game, is the minister, and some might say that he's always talking a big game, and yet here we are sitting with 6,424 murders in just the second quarter. So how easy or difficult will it be for him to get those guns out of the wrong hands?
Hi, Morena, and hi, Faith. Thanks for inviting me. With the illegal firearms, it's not that easy because we need a strong intelligence on where to look for these guns and where to find the guns and the modus operandi of the people that are in possession of these particular guns.
In that case then, Calvin, when we're reading out these particular crime statistics, although in instances there has been a decline, but it almost appears as though here the criminal is winning. And the criminal has somehow become more confident in their ability to carry out the activity at the expense of the police service. And really here it's around questions of, is it a capacity thing? Is it a training issue? Is it a confidence issue? Because we cannot keep churning over the same kind of crime statistics and think that surely South African citizens can feel safe. So how do we stop this notion of criminals feeling as though they've got the upper hand against citizens, including members of the SAPS?
Yes, that's a good one. You see, most of the firearms that are out there in the loose and are in the criminal hands, most of them, they come from police stations which were robbed. You get police stations in the outskirts where it's more in the quiet area. So there are criminals that target those police stations to go and rob them at night and take those firearms. Then you get the military barracks, the barracks of the military, where they are broken into and those firearms goes into the hands of the criminals. Then, as you can see, the decline of the farm robberies. Now, what used to happen, many farm owners, they get competency for firearms in big quantities. They're more collectors of firearms. So most criminals tend to go and rob the farms, knowing that they will also acquire as many firearms as possible into their hands. Now, the other question is how easy now it is to get a firearm, illegal firearm in South Africa. It's as easy as going into a hostel and asking for, let's say, your traditional medicine called Intelezi. As long as you can trust it to be given that, you can easily now your next question and say, do you have any tool for me? And then they'll bring firearms to your possession. And the pricing of it is determined by a firearm that comes from a house robbery, let's say, or is still fresh, coming from an owner, a gun license owner. Those firearms, they tend to be sold at a higher price. Where else, if you buy a firearm and illegal firearm and it doesn't have any history or no one knows the history of that firearm, the price becomes less because now they believe, this syndicate, they believe that with those firearms, you might come across after, maybe if you get caught, it goes for ballistic. You might be accountable for other murders. So that's how it's easy as it is to get a firearm in South Africa.
Calvin, I want to touch on GBVF rather. That is essentially a pandemic, because I know a lot of people will call it GBV epidemic, but I think a lot of people will agree with me when we say it is, in this country, a pandemic. Statistics in the second quarter at least there's been a slight decline, but it's not something that I think can be celebrated or even applauded, because it is still quite rife in this country. When there are guns in the wrong hands, when there are farm murders, which I think also have somewhat gone down, when there is so much that the police minister and his department need to be dealing with, how then do they deal with the scourge, this pandemic that is GBVF?
Yeah, you see with the GBVH and GBVF, I think the stats somehow, they are not that, I wouldn't say they are manipulated. there are many victims that goes to the police stations and they are told to go back and sort out their dispute with their partners and all those things. And, you know, even when it comes to issues of rape, like we had in the previous, they say, no, the rape kits in the police stations, there's a shortage there. And other victims in the GBVH, they tend to be a prey of a financial relying on some of the victims. I mean, some of the suspects that are committing this crime. But also, you know, I read something last week where they say because of the number of the unemployment and the stress level that many couples are experiencing, they tend to be in arguments where now they turn so violent and it becomes unacceptable and to report the crime to the police.
You know, as I'm looking at these statistics, Calvin, I'm also quite perturbed about for example, cash in transit heists. It's up by 30%. Car hijackings, 14% increase year on year. And this is where a lot of the weapons that we're speaking about, the firearms, are actually utilized. So cash in transit heists, right? If it's up by 30%, you have to ask yourself who's behind it, who's the beneficiary. Why is it that it's so intricate? Why do we struggle to catch some of these guys? And more importantly than that is how do we put a lockdown on it? Because this is proper organized crime. In order for you to be able to stop or to even do some kind of a cash in transit, and you're seeing a 30% increase, it means that there's a lucrative market. It means that they found a way of being able to adapt to the system and get away with it. But also you have to worry about just how organized and just how skilled these individuals are in being able to carry out this particular crime. What do we know about this? I mean, is there any form of research or any form of understanding about this? Because 30% increase in cash and transit heists is a dangerous figure. It is dangerous for those that are caught in the crossfire. It is dangerous for some of us that go to the filling station and all of a sudden you could get, in the middle of it at any moment in time. So 30% is no easy kind of number here. How did we get here?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You see, the problem with the cash in transit, the people that does this modus operandi of a crime, they are well known in the townships or wherever in their hideout places. Now, that's why I'm saying that the crime intelligence, that's where the police now, they are lacking in terms of the crime intelligence. Like in the old days, how they used to sort out this thing, they used to have safe houses in the township, whereby it is going to be known that who's hijacking cars, who's stealing cars, and who stole which car and where. Now, if at the cash in transit, let's say now you see a red bakkie, a Toyota red bakkie that rammed the cash in transit, and then you don't see it at that particular now syndicate or the particular criminal, then you can match it and say, oh, there's the one that has committed the crime. So the collection of the crime intelligence it's lacking in this space. And also, we come in the forum of informers, you know, in the past, and the informants now, they are not well catered. So what I mean is police need to pull out rewards. They need to anonymously pay this, gather a collection of information from the informers, and they need to pay them on time and well. Because with the informant, they are part of the community. Now, when you are part of the community, you know who's who and who's doing what. Because when cash in transit gets committed, it's done in a place and then a safe house when now they must go for a hideout and not to be caught by the police. It's within the community. Now, the community, they've got strong intelligence themselves, so the police need to cater the informants in the space so that they can get enough information to tackle the crime, not only on the aftermath after it has happened.
Most definitely. We can only but hope when we do have a conversation with you again, Calvin, that there's been a decrease in cash in transit heists, you know, of course in hijackings,
sure,
but most importantly in making sure that those guns falling into the wrong hands, that number has also come down. But we leave it there with you. Thank you so much, Calvin Rafadi. He is a crime forensic investigator.